right, interview number 2 of the day, the man of the hour, Nick Cianfaglione.
What up?
What's up, man?
What up?
Former Artist Republik. Congrats on the sale.
Thank you.
What else are you doing? I mean, you're the product lead of our work. You are now part of RI Rhode Island startup, the Founders and Friends. You're a couple advisory roles now. I mean, you're doing a little bit of everything. What's new in the world of Nick?
Yeah, so obviously the history in Artist Republic's been great. I was in the music industry for 10 years, and the music industry is great, but it also really sucks at the same time. It's like, you know, it's really fun, but it's a very difficult industry. And so, you know, after that, I have an affinity for music. But, you know, after selling Artist Republic, I really wanted to dive in more to, like, outside of things. Like, what is entrepreneurship? What is, you know, what are other startups doing? And also, you know, take everything I've learned from now being, you know, a second or third time founder and bring that somewhere else. Because I think that's like a big advantage to have on a team is like someone that's like been there and like I've been from starting an idea to growing an idea to scaling an idea to selling an idea, and being able to have that I think is now like it's fun. Like working with other people's ideas, coming up with an idea is tough.
So we also we did forget recurring guests.
Well, I was about to say
recurring
the
guests.
story has been told in a bridged version of this on a previous episode.
Yeah,
so welcome back to the show.
No, thank you.
That's before the Artist Republic got
acquisition.
well, pre-acquisition and pre-cease and desist from TikTok.
Oh, that was pre-cease and desist from TikTok.
We got the new logo.
We got the new logo. I'm rocking the new logo tonight. I actually have so many hoodies from Artist Republic that like I have old logo hoodies, new logo hoodies, and I'll never know what I'm going to wear that day. Yeah, that was fun waking up. I have a long I have like a wall in my house where I frame a lot of stuff. I think it's cool from startups and memorability. And one of the things I have on that wall is any cease and desist I've ever received.
How many are there?
Got KJP.
I think it's like 6.
Yeah, because we know the KJP.
Yeah.
6 is pretty.
Yeah, I think 6. It's like
6 brands to tell you to fuck off. Basically, that's pretty cool.
I think it's one of those things though. It's like if someone's not scared of you, you're not doing something wrong. Like I've sent cease and desist before because people have like encroached in your lane, and you're like, you know what? Stay in your lane. I stay in my lane, and a cease and desist is more like that. So like they're not scary. Like I think they're kind of funny.
It's a good story to tell on a podcast.
Exactly, it's a great story to tell on a podcast.
There's like, should we like fabricate a beef with somebody just to give them?
We almost did with the emojis. We almost did with emojis.
Yeah, that's like, you know, I think you made a good point. I mean, our old logo to that point too. It's like, you know, you have your wall of memorabilia and your closet of random shit with the old logo. You know, for a long time in our old place, we had the old Beers, Business, and Balls flag with the emoji logos on it.
Yeah.
And you can't use the emojis to promote, right? You can't use them as your own marketing collateral.
I didn't know that.
So hence what you see behind you.
Yeah.
Drawings.
Drawings. It's new. It's new stuff. Right?
It's new. Okay. New.
Let's talk about how the acquisition went down, first of all. Artist Republic, you know, you're building, you're scaling, you're selling, you're talking to customers, and then you go and you get some phone calls, right? How'd this all go down?
So I think the biggest thing to remember when like you're running a company is like your goal of an entrepreneur is a couple things. One, like you want to push like your company and yourself to a limit, undoubtedly committed to that mission. But the hard part about that is when you do that, you also need to know when to walk away. And there was a point where we got to Artist Republic where as the CEO of a company that is actually a C Corp, and you have investors and board of directors, you have a fiduciary duty to, you know, get the best return for the people who invested in our stakeholders in your company. And so we made that decision. We were going into Series A, and we made the strategic decision at that point, like, we knew where the market was going. We were trying to Series A the company at a point when NFTs were just coming out. There was no way that a VC was going to invest in a music technology company that was not doing blockchain. And so at that point, we made that realization. We're like, look, we need to be smart here. We have acquisitions on the table. Now we need to actually take those things seriously and see which one of them is going to turn into fruition. So we started these conversations in August of 2021. And at that point,
That
we
was so
ended up.
recently. Side
Yeah.
note, that was like, this all went down pretty quick. Huh?
Oh yeah, it went down pretty quick. Long-ish, but still pretty. Definitely too long. But like, I'm still dealing with stuff in the acquisition now. But you know, it's great. You know, we started it then. We finalized a letter of intent the end of October. We had to crank to beat January 1st because obviously on January 1st their tax season changes.
Right.
So you had to get the company changed over before January 1st, all that stuff. And yeah, so we did that, and that was really how it went down. It was a great experience. I think you learn a lot from that. You know, like I said, like starting a company, growing a company, and then selling a company. It's a totally different experience from every point. And I think all of us entrepreneurs have ADHD, and now it's nice to like not feel guilty for like focusing on other stuff.
You're focusing on a lot. I mean, one of them right now is RI Startup, right? StartupRI.
Yes.
So it's like we're at the Founders and Friends event right here. Number 2, very exclusive. The crowd is filling in as we speak. But what is the goal of StartupRI, and what is the goal of these different types of events?
Yeah, so the goal of specifically the Founders and Friends events, which is under this brand of StartupRI, is really, when you look at other cities that have building a bustling startup ecosystem, they have co-working spaces, they have money, and they have stuff for people to do. There's a lot in Rhode Island for people to do. There's Venture Cafe, there's a Rhode Island Hub, there's all these different things that can support an entrepreneur, but there's nothing that makes an entrepreneur want to be like, yo, I got friends here that like, I want to stay here. And it's a lot of name tag events, and the whole idea behind the Founders and Friends events is like, let's host an exclusive event, and what I mean by exclusive is like, all you have to do is join the email list. Like, join the email list, and you'll get an invite. But if you don't, you just won't get an invite. And then we'll pick a random location. Nobody, technically, yes, I started it, but it's not an entity. There's no owner of it. Like, if you're like, hey, I want to get interested, after this event, we'll probably have another Zoom call. We'll be like, hey, guys, who wants to join the Zoom call and just pick our next location? We'll pick the location, we'll pick the event, and then, 10, 20, 30 of us will all just, as a collective, promote that event. And really the goal is, actually, truly, I don't know the goal. I don't know the end goal.
It's still early.
Yeah, we'll see where it goes.
This is one of those things, because it's not an entity, and you guys aren't making revenue, obviously.
Yeah.
It's just go and see what happens.
Exactly. There's no entity. We're not charging people. Nobody's making money here. It's kind of just like, there's a lot of people around here, so why not all support each other and all have a great beer.
To your point, there's a lot of people around here.
Yep.
And despite, what the rankings say on how Rhode Island is to start a business, right? This is a community that's long been looked at in New England as, a really robust startup community. So as far as Rhode Island goes, right, what do you believe the strengths are about this community to be successful, specifically kind of in the entrepreneurship world? Why Rhode Island to start a business?
Well, so the biggest reason why I say Rhode Island is on the East Coast, you don't really have a gen tech startup capital. Boston is very much medical and biomed, stuff like that. Which is why, a company like us being a music company, that's why we came here. And that's why, you look at Bradley, which is an outside enterprise sales company, that's an out of the box company. That company does well here. You look at Pangea with Adam and EdTech, that company does well here. This is kind of like the home of it's kind of like the successful home of Misfit Toys, but with support. And Rhode Island has really stepped up and said hey, we're going to build incubator space. We're going to build this innovation district. We're going to do this stuff. The only thing that's missing now is money to keep people here. And that's what I think, that may be an end goal of this. Maybe, you have 500 people that all come out to beers and they're like, hey, I want to throw in $1,000, and we open up a $5 million VC fund. We all put up $1,000. You don't know, and that's the stuff that I think really, has potential with Rhode Island. And I say anything that worked well in Austin or Nashville will work in Rhode Island. And I think the startup scene is kind of the same.
And how can Rhode Island learn from its mistakes in the past? I mean, we've talked about,
There've been a few of them.
There's
definitely been a few.
But, one
whether
being
it's
Kurt
legislative
Schilling's little
yeah,
project,
Kurt
and, but how can Rhode Island, after such a negative experience, turn around and be like, we need to make something happen here,
Yeah.
so we can do it better?
So I think the best thing that they can do is first off, don't be afraid to invest in a company. There's a difference between investing $72 million in one company and investing $72 million in 72 different companies. And so that's one thing that I think Rhode Island needs to do better is take away the stigma of what investing in a startup does. Because what people don't realize is when you invest $1 million in a startup, that money goes in and it goes out. And when you're investing in a Rhode Island startup, that money comes into Rhode Island. It's going into payroll that's going into Rhode Island. It's going to unemployment tax that goes into Rhode Island. Those people that you're paying are then buying coffee at small businesses in Rhode Island and doing all this stuff in Rhode Island. So even though that $1 million, is a lot, but it's going right back into the community. I think that's the biggest value behind something like that.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. It's, I mentioned those rankings because, you go on and you see, like, Go Local Prov, you see USA Today, and they all say, like, wow, look at how shitty Rhode Island is to start a business. And it's like 48th, 49th. And, I get it. There's some certain economic factors that, maybe it's more expensive to than, like, a Montana or a North Dakota, South Dakota kind of deal. But, at the end of the day, this is a community that has the right infrastructure to be successful.
Yep.
Got to move the needle now.
And there's a difference between starting a business and starting a business. Like, I think Rhode Island, like my company, for example, I was from Connecticut. My company was registered in Connecticut. That's where my home base is. That's where a lot of my stuff is. But more importantly, I know Connecticut laws inside and out because that's where I'm from. But my company was still headquartered here. So does Connecticut have a much favorable LLC structures? Yes, 100%. But does that mean Rhode Island is better or worse than Connecticut starting a business? No. I was from Connecticut. I came here for a reason. It was a better place to headquarter my company. And I think when a lot of these places rank states, they're like, oh, based on the taxes or based on this or based on that. But you also have to think of a big factor of the community. Like when you're running a business, like you'll be here at Long Live and you'll ask them what are the breweries in Rhode Island and they'll send you to other breweries. Like that is so rare in so many communities that in Rhode Island, nobody cares. Like if there was another music company, me and them would probably be meeting and talking about how each of us can help each other. And that doesn't happen. And I think that's why like one thing that Rhode Island has that not a lot of others have.
And we've noticed that too, like on the podcast, talking to different brewers, like you made that point. It's like they are all friends. They all collab on beers together. It's like you go to anywhere else, they're like, that's my enemy, that's my target. I'm going to make sure they're not doing as well. Whereas here, it's like, oh, when you're stopping here, make sure you head to Beer on Earth. Make sure you head to Moniker, all of these different places. So Rhode Island, it's a friendly spot.
And Nick, you actually make a good point. It's like, you and I are from Connecticut, Will's from New York, right? The amount of entrepreneurs in Rhode Island that you and I have talked to that aren't necessarily, they don't set up shop in Rhode Island, but they set their businesses up here. I mean, Jeff Goodnow from Moniker, he's driving in from Connecticut. You've got a lot of business owners that live in the Boston area, but where's their business? Rhode Island. You actually make a great point of the people, how they're not necessarily, they don't have to be within the confines of the state, but rather they see some value in starting a business here.
And people don't realize the economic impact of that too. Like, yes, my business was registered in Connecticut, but I paid, $300 a year to keep my business in Connecticut. That's great. So Rhode Island missed out on the $300. What would he do? But Rhode Island got all of that other money that was going here through the company. The $2 million that we had was going to a local marketing agency. It was going to our employees. They were buying coffee. They were buying bagels. They were buying office space. All that different stuff impacts the economy way greater than what your business tax is going to be.
Right. I agree. That's a super interesting perspective that we haven't heard a lot. But, so what's next? What's next for you? You're doing a lot of stuff. You've got your cushy 9 to 5 now.
Yeah, you're back on the 9 to 5. Well, it's never 9 to 5.
Yeah, it's never 9 to 5. Well, with that, I'm actually like a 7 to 5 with them. Half of my team that I work with is in Hungary, so I'm gonna start at like 7 a.m. in the morning.
That's like 3, 4 o'clock for them.
Oh yeah, it's great. It's great. Yeah, it's great.
You sound thrilled.
I love those guys. I love those guys. But with that, going off of that, I think the biggest thing for me next is after selling Artist Republik, I think the biggest thing I realized is like there's a different side of entrepreneurship. Like you don't have to create this massive billion-dollar unicorn. It ain't gonna happen. But like I found a great niche where like I'm in right now. Like I want to see where the road goes. Of like I work with startups 9 to 5, help them grow and scale their businesses, and maybe I'll move on to another startup. And I'm working with amazing teams. I love the guys that I work with. I love the product. And, so I work with them for the next 3, 4, 5 years, and then go and help with another startup. But then after hours, what else am I doing? I'm working with a local marketing company, helping them as a growth advisor. and working with different people on helping their startups and advising, and maybe launch my own stuff for just for fun, like looking at coffee brands, looking at all these different stuff. Like, what am I gonna do? That like doesn't take time out of my 9 to 5, but it's fun 5 to 9, and like more importantly, keeps you learning and like keeps your finger on the pulse. Because as soon as you get your finger off the pulse in startup land, you're done.
Yeah. And I mean, this whole episode was quotable, but you are now, I mean, it's still young, 24?
23.
23.
Holy shit.
You lived a lot of life at the age of 23, but going back to before you started Artist Republik.
23 again, though, too.
I know, right? To go before you started all of these brands and before where you are now today, what advice do you wish you heard as a 17 or 18-year-old kid?
Okay, number one, if you're not in college, this advice for you is, like, if something can make you money, just go all in on it. Like, there is a kid that I knew that was, I don't know, weird kid in high school, whatever. But just, like, out there, kind of like, no one really knew what he was doing. He started a lawn care business. He's a multi-millionaire now. We're in a lawn care business. Like, so many people doubted him, but, like, dude, good for you. Go do that. Like, if it can make you money, go do it. So that's one thing. Now, the other thing is for, like, the kids in college that are, starting companies, whatever. If you want to start a company and you're in college, do it before you graduate. So many kids wait, like, oh, I'm going to wait to do it, whatever. Do not do that, because at the end of the day, there is no point in time in your life where you will be able to completely epically fail, lose all the money in your bank account, and if you're paying for college on loans, you still will have breakfast and a place to sleep, right? That will never happen again.
You can fill in the gaps between that, between the free pizzas in school and between all the other random shit.
And I know you guys get it. Like, I get it now too. Like, now that I have a actual 9 to 5 and a rent and healthcare and a car payment and stuff like that, I'm looking at this in-person coffee shop. I'm like, do I really want to put $2,000 out on a lease, or do I want to use $2,000 to pay for where I live?
Right.
And so that's definitely something to consider.
Yeah, push comes to shove, you got to pay the bills at this point.
Yeah, exactly.
I feel
so that's why I would leave it. Do it now.
You might have even said that a couple of, the last time we chatted on our pod. It's like, you never have the flexibility to just fail and screw so much shit up than you do in college. Obviously, that window's passed for all of us, but it's some good advice.
Failing is the quickest way to success.
Right.
The amount of ideas I have on my phone that are completely fails, I can probably pitch 15 of them right now. I come up with more fails than good ideas. But when you follow a fail, it comes to an idea. And that's what I think is cool, is just because an idea is a fail, it actually may not be a failure at the end of it. So just follow it and see where it goes, because just because it's failing in its current state, you may come up with a new state for that same idea in 2 months. Because you learned something, or you learned a solution. Now it's not a fail. But you wouldn't know until you got to that point.
Always a pleasure, man.
I was going to say, can't wait till Nick writes a book, huh? That's got to be the next one. Or host a podcast.
I'm about 30 way through my book.
Host a podcast.
We do know a few guys that are, maybe establishing a podcast network.
Oh yeah, really? Do you? I didn't know. The podcast is in the book, although I don't know. I saw all the podcasts on at Barstool. I'm gonna have to own my IP, but
we'll give you that for sure. But to close out,
thank you guys. I will let you pass on to the next.
No, you got to schmooze away. But where can our listeners find your content and follow you along this journey?
So the best place right now is LinkedIn. You can spell my last name, which most likely it's in the description.
Yeah, we'll just put it.
You can find me on LinkedIn. That's my best place right now, to be completely honest. So,
how can people get involved with StartupRI too? I know we've talked about it.
RIStartup.com.
RIStartup.com.
Bingo.
Is it StartupRI or RI Startup?
It's technically StartupRI, but that domain wasn't available. So
and you own
we went with RI Startup.
Ton of domains.
I
didn't get that one.
I actually got a fight with my girlfriend the other day. I can't wait for her to listen to this podcast. Actually, about how many domains I own.
How many?
It was 192.
I was gonna guess over under 120. I'm glad.
It was 192, and they're $10 a piece. And she was like, "Are you freaking kidding me?" And I didn't tell her that I already auto renewed half of them 6 months ago. So there's definitely another 60 or 70 in there.
So Andrew Gadzecki from MicroAcquire. Yeah. He's a LinkedIn guy. Did you see his meme?
His post today? I showed it to my girlfriend.
It was literally about that. It was idea.
Yeah.
Buys domain. And it's a vicious cycle, and then you have
that's
finish
it.
and ship product
Yes.
on the bottom and no arrows.
So here's my hypothesis of domains. If you have an idea and you come up with a name, and that domain for that like business name is available, that is a good idea. But if the domain is not available, it's not a good idea.
Right.
So if you can buy the .com or a .app or a .io, it's a good idea. If you can't, move on to something else.
If not, knock on the landlord's door, Nick, and
Yeah.
see if you can buy it off.
Oh, jeez. We
Cool.
appreciate it, man.
Yeah, no,
best of
anytime,
luck to you. We'll be
Enjoy
back.
the town.
Yeah, I'll hand it off to the next guy. Thanks, guys.
Sweet, man. Thanks.